Hello and welcome friend. In this tutorial we will try to look at some of the file handling. So file handling is one of the basic operations in any programming language where you need to have the capability to open a file and probably read line by line and maybe do some parsing with respect to splitting it into words, counting, doing any operation. So it's a very basic operation. You will find this in all kind of programming language. So we will try to do and look into some of the concepts and syntax, how to open file and parse line by line. And once you know the basic structure, you can build on top of that, adding more exotic features like replacing a line with certain things or counting certain characters or more maybe manipulating or replacing something. You can do a number of things. So but let's go through the basics first. So I have this file handling operation. So before I go ahead and open my script, I have a file called filename.txt and it has 10 lines and it is like this. This is line number 1. Just for the sake of displaying that it is the line number 1 2 3 4, I just mentioned those in individual lines. Now I have this first program file handling 1. So what I'm doing is I am passing a file name. So this is one. Consider this as a command, cat file name. So what exactly cat file name will do? It will cat and show the contents of the file. But that's not what we want. We don't want to see the entire file together. What we want is take a line by line and see the file, not just one dump, one big string outputted onto stdout. So first we do a cat and then we will do a pipe. So pipe has a feature of passing the output of one command to another command. We have already seen in pipes and redirections. So it will pipe and it will pass to while loop. And this is a syntax for while loop and read and line. This is some variable. You could have something like instead of line, you could say pine or line number or whatever. And then when it passed to a while and this while loop will read line by line. So read, you remember we have seen the command read. Read reads a user input from a terminal stdin and it will read by default as long as it receives a new line. If it doesn't receive a new line, it will keep on reading. There's an option in read wherein you can give n number like maybe 20 character 30 character. By default read reads from the stdin as long as there is a new line. So each line in this file will be ended by a new line. And so when read tries to read, it will read till the new line and then echo this and then it will keep on doing this, keep on doing this. So if you look for my file name, you will see that this is a line, this is a line number 1, and after this there is a new line which is not visible in the normal text editor, but it has to be a new line. If there is no new line, it would have continued in here. So this line would have printed here, this is line number 2 instead of going to a new line. So there is a new line which you cannot see. So that's what read does. It will it will read a line as long as there is a new line and then echo that and then go back and read again. So let's run this program and you will see file handling 1. So far so good. It is printing line by line. After each line you could do some operation here. Here you can do some operations. Maybe after printing a line I will say echo this is my line or something like that, some new line or maybe some commands, anything you wish you can do that. So this is line number 1 and then this is my line, this is line number 2, this is my line. So you can do an operation. So this is one way, and I would suggest you guys, because many times you will need it, so even if you have not understand fully, you can just try to memorize at least certain parts. You can just say memorize cat file name, pipe to while read line, do echo dollar line, and then you can do some operation. It will come, trust me, it will come very handy when you try to do many kind of coding. Even if you can do this in a shell prompt rather than writing to a file, you can quickly try to see your contents. You can say cat file name pipe to while read, and instead of line I could say pine, so it doesn't matter. And while has a do and done, so do, and then you have to say echo and you have to give this variable whatever you have given and then done. So you're done, it will read. Now let's look into the second program which I have. So the other way to do the same thing but in a slightly different way. So first we used to do cat, but here we are not doing a cat, here we are doing a while read line. So it will try to read from std in and then echo, and this std in data will not be there because see by default there's no std in, we are not typing. So when you say less than, that means the data which we are supposed to read from std in, the way read reads, it will actually come from a file. So file name goes to the std in, which is in turn is read by the read command. So let's execute this second program and it will have the same output, but there is a difference between program file handling 1 and file handling 2. So right now it gives the same output, but there is a difference and I will explain you in subsequent example. But for generic reading of file, it will give you the same output. So it's okay. Now let's go to example 3. This is one more syntax, and here what you can do is you can say while some input file, you could give this any name, A, B, C input file, whatever, and then equals to, you have to give a space here and some read line. So basically this guy is also doing the read line what we have seen in example 2 instead of 3, and then echo that line, and that read line, instead of reading from std in, it comes from the file. So if we run this program, it will be same output. So it will give the file, this is line number 1, line number 2, line number 3, and then line number 10. It displays the contents of the file name which we have, file name.txt. So we have seen these 3 examples. They're almost similar, but they are same, almost same, but they are not same. So I could say they are similar but not same. Now let's look at another example called file number 4. Now here what I'm trying to do is I'm reading a file, that's good, but at the same time what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to count how many lines are there in the file. So I will have a variable called counter, and I will say cat my file, and I will say while read line, good, and each time I read my line I will say counter, and I will say okay, counter increased by 1, and then this is done, and then I would finally print file, my file, whatever my file name has, how many lines. So I will print how many lines I have. Now let's try to run and see what is the output. So you will be surprised by seeing the output, and then I will tell you why. If I run this program, you see this says file name has 0 lines. So let's see if it says file, is it not processing this? We will try to debug this. So now if you see here, it will actually processing this line, so it will display all the lines, and this variable is also set, but at the end it says 0 line, and I will very soon demonstrate to you why it is like this. So if you see, it is displaying file 1 2 3 and after 10, but it says has 0 lines instead of 10 lines. Now to debug further, let's try to print this variable counter and see what it is. So echo $counter. Now if you run this, you will see that the first, for line number 1, the counter variable does prints 1, for 2 it does prints 2, but at the end if you see here it is 10, and after that when it comes out it is 0. So it seems like the variable got reset, but it's not actually reset. So if you remember in shell script, whenever you declare any variable, that is always in a global scope. So it is not possible that it is treating here as some other variable. So there is a problem happening, and the problem what is happening is whenever a command pipes to another command, a new shell gets spawned. So this is running in two shell. First shell is this, and then new shell gets spawned, and when a new shell gets spawned, the variable gets reset. So in this program, if it runs in this shell only, this value would have been retained. But since what we are doing, we are piping to another shell with another command, and that spawns a new shell. That means this counter variable each time is no more this counter variable. Each time it gets reset. That's the reason this is local variable in that perspective, in that particular shell, and it keeps on increment in the secondary cell, in the second cell which got spawned, and at the end when we come back here, which is in shell number 1. So till here what happens is like this. We will write here. So it executes till here in shell 1. So till here it is shell 1. I'm just writing, this is not some syntax or something, but just to explain you guys. So this is shell 1, and then this is all part is executing in shell 2, and then when it comes back, this is the end of the shell, and then it falls back to shell 1. So what is happening is it will treat count 2 in shell 2 as a new variable, and it will increment, but when it comes out of this, it falls back to shell 1, and this variable is lost. So that's what is happening. So how to overcome this, how to read this? So we have the other syntax for the for loop. So if you remember, always remember, whenever there is a pipe, a new shell gets spawned, and when new shell gets spawned, the variable inside that might be lost. You might try to keep it into a file to circumvent this kind of operations, but it's up to you. You can do anything. So how you solve it, it's up to you, but I will teach you the technique. Now if you see here, I have another program 6, 6.sh. Now here I'm using the other syntax. Here what I'm doing is I'm saying read line. So infinite loop, while loop, as long as there is a read line, and then it reads from stdin. So it is not spawning a new shell. It is just everything is happening within the shell, and this stdin in fact becoming file name, because the output from the file name goes to the stdin, which in turn is read line by line from a while shell. So here it's not spawning a new shell. So whatever count variable I give here, this variable will still remain intact. So it will be all executing in one shell only. So if I run file handling 6, so you will see that file handling 6 will give you 10 lines, and it will tell this is my line number 10. So I'm just opening this file again for you guys to remember and check. So this looks like a slightly better syntax than the other one, but it's up to you. When not necessary, probably you can use either of them, but if you have a problem like this, just remember it might be spawning a new shell, and that's the reason your variable is getting lost. So thank you all for watching this video, and we have seen several techniques, several ways to open a file, read line by line, and maybe after that you can do any operation. So whatever you have learned, suppose you have learned sed and awk and everything, you can apply those things into each of these lines and come out with some output, some requirement, whatever you need to accomplish. So thanks once again, and I hope to see you in the next video.